Hey guys, today I want to talk about something that is very, very important that I think is very pertinent to all of us, and that is how to be there for people who are struggling. Those people could be our friends, those people could be acquaintances, those people could be complete strangers, but how can we be there for them? And the other title I want to give this is How to Be a Pillar, because I see those people who are willing to brave the fear of approaching and coming near to people who are struggling as pillars. And we all need at least one pillar in our lives when we are struggling. And, I myself have not been a very good pillar in the past for people, and people were not good pillars for me when I was really struggling. As you may know, if you've listened to my podcast, I actually attempted suicide about maybe 8 years ago. And, afterwards, when I told people, I didn't really feel like people rallied around me. In fact, I didn't feel like anyone rallied around me. So, how can we be that pillar for one another? And let's talk first about what might make us shy away from that and not approach that. So, I'm going to share with you three reasons I believe people are not good pillars. And I'm going to start with one that I found myself after I had my suicide attempt, and I shared with a few people. What I noticed and what I found actually very surprising was that some of those people I realized were really evoked by my level of depression. It came too close to something in them that they were really fighting off and really not wanting to acknowledge and really be aware of. And I could tell. And in fact, I think one person that I thought was, kind of a friend slash acquaintance, she had friend potential. I shared with her that I attempted suicide, and she said something to the effect of, yeah, I'm just barely keeping my head above water myself, which was surprising to me because she was a very high functioning person from the outside. And I realized I knew her from running. We went running together and she did marathons, and I never would have guessed the level of struggle that she had. But in that little snapshot, that little window, she really helped me see that for her, running was the only thing keeping her from not being unlike myself. And so I could tell that it was too evocative for me to share more about my own suffering and struggling because she just couldn't go there. It was too close to home, a home that she didn't want to acknowledge. And those same people also don't have boundaries. So they can't say, oh, that's your struggle, not mine. So they don't have space for other people's struggles because there's no boundaries to distinguish. And so they're going to start feeling the things that they don't want to feel themselves. The second reason I believe it's really common, and I would imagine I would like to think most people fall into this category, is that we just feel incompetent. I remember when I was probably around 25, 26, my best friend at the time, she has since died. Her name is Julie. Her best friend just died. I'm sorry, her mother just died suddenly. And she was so hurting at that time. And I was her best friend, and I really failed her. I mean, I royally failed her. I was not there for her. And I know that the reason for that was I genuinely believed irrationally that if I were to try to be there for her, I would say something wrong and make it worse. I really, really believed that. And I think I probably represent a lot of people in that we are afraid, we are intimidated to be around people who are on the edge, that we might make it worse. And we run up against this thing that we say, I don't know what to say. I have heard so many people say that, where someone they know just lost a loved one suddenly and they say, I don't know what to say. You know what? None of us do. And here's the good news. It doesn't matter what we say. We'll get to that in a minute. But we don't know what to say. But when we say that, we're running into our own incompetence and where we feel like we are a failure, but we're making it about us ultimately instead of that person who is actually struggling. And so it really needs to be about them, not us. It needs to be not about our discomfort, but theirs. And so a lot of us feel that way. I remember when my daughter was younger, and I attempted suicide, and she was really struggling with that. As you can imagine, she actually found me after I took a bottle of pills. And she was about 14, and we were with family, and her aunt was there, who only lives about 45 minutes away. And the aunt saw the cuts on her arm that were a result of her own suffering and anguish. And the aunt looked at those cuts and looked at Edie and said, "Wow, Edie, I sure hope you have someone to talk to." So here's the thing. The aunt should have been the person for Edie to talk to. And that's what we do when we feel incompetent and intimidated. We say, "Are you seeing a therapist? I hope you have a good therapist. Are you talking about that with your therapist?" That's what we do. And I know that for most of us, the reason is because we don't feel like we can do it well. We don't feel like we know what we're doing. We feel like we might mess it up and make it worse. And that is not a bad motivation. But what it feels like on the other end is, I don't want to hear how you're struggling. I don't care. I'm not interested. It's not worth it for me. It's not worth my discomfort to hear about your discomfort. So that's what it feels like. It feels like we're being shooed away. Like, hey, I hope you find a good therapist. I'm not that person. I'm not going to listen. And it really hurts. It actually adds insult to injury because we're already feeling alone and we're already struggling. So just not feeling heard by those around us, it adds more hurt and more pain and feeling rejected, actually. And here's the thing, you guys, even the best professional, the best therapist in the world cannot substitute for an actual friend or loved one who just cares and is interested. No one can substitute for that. A paid professional who's getting paid to care about you is never going to substitute for a person who actually just cares about you. And what matters isn't how well our technique is when we engage with someone who's struggling. What matters is that we give a shit. That is what matters at the end of the day. And then the last reason I feel like not a lot, hopefully, some people are not pillars for those who are struggling is because, and this is an ugly thing to admit, but it's because they actually resent that the focus is on you and your feelings and not theirs. And the reason I say that is because I did have one person when I was suicidal that I shared things with, and I'll call her Sharon. And one day I was telling her on the phone and she started crying, which, at first I'm like, okay, maybe this feels good. I don't know. But it didn't feel good because it was very plain after a moment that the reason Karen, what I call her, Sharon, was crying was for her. She was making it about her. And actually, she was crying because she said how hard it is for her to be there for someone who's struggling. And I see in retrospect, I see the full picture of Sharon, and she basically didn't like how much of the focus was on me, and she was bringing it back to her. And that's a real thing, you guys. There are people out there who aren't just going to let you talk about you. It's going to come back to them. They're going to resent that. And they're going to bring it back to how they feel, whether it's how they feel now with you or how they felt suicidal themselves at some point, but it's going to end up being about them. So that's what not to do. Let's talk about what to do practically. Okay. So the first thing we need to know is that when people are struggling, no matter how much they're struggling, they are still capable of using their words and telling us what's going on. And we can give them the opportunity and trust them to take us up on it or not. We need to be that for them. So we need to trust that person, and we can start by saying, I'm noticing, Sherry, that you're really not yourself right now. Or I see how you've been since, you and your partner broke up, and I'm concerned. So just those two examples, those two sentences, that is healing. That is therapeutic in and of itself, because I am noticing, I am seeing them. So just being seen, being recognized, being noticed, and having someone be concerned, man, that is so healing. That is so powerful. So that is step number one. Do not discount the power you have when you make someone feel seen and noticed, when you help someone know that you care. If you do nothing more than that, that's enough. Okay, so then you just listen. So you can say something like, I am noticing that you seem like you're not yourself right now after the breakup. And I want to let you know, if you're interested in sharing with me how you're feeling, I am interested in hearing how it is for you. So we just put the ball in their court. We just give them that opportunity and trust them that if they want to share, they will. And if they don't, they won't. Don't ever assume, oh, they're going through so much, I'm sure they don't want to talk about it. Don't assume that. Talking about it might be exactly what they need. Okay, so next we listen. We listen. We just listen. We don't worry about what to say, because actually the truth is no one gives a shit what you say. They want to feel heard. And that is what we need to create, is that environment where they can feel heard, where they can feel seen, where they can feel understood. And so we listen with the objective of understanding. So we can say things that we call reflective listening techniques, like, wow. Okay, just saying wow. That's therapeutic. That's what I do as a therapist. Just the look on your face, like, wow, wow. Okay, just me saying that. I'm just being a human. I'm just feeling it with them. I'm engaging my empathy. And empathy is engaging our imagination while we're listening to build an imaginary bridge spanning the gap between myself and this person. And while I'm listening, I'm imagining what it was like for them when that person said that or that thing happened. And so I'm just going to respond naturally. And I'm going to say, wow. And that's it. That's all I need to say. That is therapeutic. That is healing, because they're feeling heard. You are understanding exactly the wow that they felt in that moment. So it could be something just that simple. It could be like, I get why you would feel that way. Okay. So that's what we call a validation statement. I get why you would feel that way. Or we could say, man, that must have been shocking. And don't be afraid to get it wrong. If it's not shocking, they'll correct you. They'll say, actually, it wasn't shocking, but it was really frightening. So don't be afraid to do it wrong. But that is reflective listening. So just listen and be a mirror. Reflect back what you're feeling from what you're hearing. Next step, do not fix. Okay, here is the paradox. When we try to fix, fixing often comes through giving another opinion, trying to help them see a different side to things, giving any kind of advice, or sharing our own experience. Okay, those are all ways that we fix. Fixing actually makes it worse. But the real fix, the true fix, is listening and caring and understanding. That's actually what fixes it. What's shareable is bearable. So when that person feels seen and heard and understood by us, that is the fix. So just listening, validating, reflecting what you're feeling, what you're thinking as they're talking. That is what fixes it. And we can be curious and ask open-ended questions like, when do you think this all started? Or what do you think prompted for you to say that in that, at that time? Or what do you think prompted this feeling that you're having right now? So just ask real questions and just trust yourselves. Trust yourselves. Okay. Trust yourselves. Do not second guess yourself. Just be a human. Don't feel like you have to put on a therapy hat, because the best therapists are the ones who take off their therapist hats and are real humans. So I want to encourage you guys, you are powerful and you can be a pillar for others. And we need more pillars in the world. So trust yourselves and just show up. Thanks for listening today. Please share this with a friend. I think this is something that really needs to be heard long and far. And feel free to subscribe to my podcast and give me a 5-star review. Thank you so much, you guys.